Hello and welcome or welcome back. A few weeks ago I paired a random move bot that I coded against Zach, the worst bot on chess.com, and that became my most popular video. So today I'm returning to the topic of random chess playing, and this time the random move bot plays itself. This game was absolute chaos, so let's get into it. White starts with knight to f3, which is a pretty good move for a random number generator. Black responds with f6, which is certainly not a good move. And pawns keep being pushed and some pieces are developed in the opening until move 6, when white makes the first blunder of this game, knight to g5, possibly the worst move on the board. But black playing randomly, black was probably not going to take that anyway. Black plays knight to a5 and blunders their own knight right back, as well as allowing a lot of nasty threats with queen to h5 check. But instead knight to c3 is played, both knights are still under attack. f5 now, the first of many checkmate blunders in this game, because according to Stockfish, there is checkmate in 10 moves after queen h5. And while I certainly would play queen h5 in this position, I definitely would not see mate in 10. White plays rook to g1 because that's how random move generators are. Black plays g6, closing the diagonal to the king, and now white develops a piece to where it can be taken two different ways. Black also develops a bishop, although not in a way that blunders it. White takes a pawn. There's now two pieces hanging for white. Black keeps the pawn pushing going. And now knight takes e6. A desperado is the best move for white because, well, the knight was hanging anyway. You may as well get a pawn for it and then save the bishop. Instead, c3 is played. Now there's two hanging pieces for white. Bishop takes b4. Now black has a hanging bishop. Knight takes a7. White has three pieces hanging. This is how chaotic randomly generated chess is. And nothing is getting taken until black finally plays h takes g5. And now black is up a knight for a pawn, and white still has a hanging bishop and knight. So, as you might expect, this position is completely winning for black. And white doubles down on losing the game by playing knight to c6. And now black blunders their queen, the first of many Botez gambits in this game. How does white respond? With the Botez counter gambit of queen to b3. Rook h7, both queens are hanging again, and again, and again, and again. And now black takes the knight that was threatening its queen. So now it's only the white queen that's getting blundered. And now white hangs that queen for a fifth move in a row, but incredibly, rook takes c6 is a marginally better move according to Stockfish. Instead of that, bishop to b7, just developing a piece calmly as if the position were totally normal. The queen gets blundered for a sixth move in a row. But now, the eval bar is back in white's favor for the first time in a while because queen takes g8 is available. But there are a lot of legal moves for white. Queen takes g8 is not likely. What's more likely is a random pawn push or a random piece shuffle. And indeed, we get a random pawn push. Now g takes h5 and white is winning if they play queen takes g8. Bishop takes g6 now, which would be a good move if not for the fact that the rook can just take it. There are four legal moves on the board. The king can move here, not there. The king can move here. The king can go here and blunder checkmate in one move. the the rook can go here and blunder checkmate in one move. This does not blunder checkmate in one move. It actually wins for black because the rook guards the checkmating square. You can also just take the bishop, which is of course the best move, and black blunders checkmate in one move. But there are only two moves. Queen takes f7 and bishop takes f7 that do not lose for white. So probably white is going to play a losing move, and they do. That is the, 8th queen blunder in 9 moves by white. And now black has played... Okay, that's only 2 mate blunders in a row, not that bad. Now it's 3 because this pawn cuts off d6, which would otherwise be an escape square. And now white has blundered their queen again. Black needs to take the queen or the rook to be winning. Instead, bishop takes c6 and checkmate is blundered for the 4th time in a row. Rook a2, that is 11 queen blunders by white. And now bishop takes c3, 5 consecutive checkmate blunders by black. Queen takes c3, saving the queen but removing the threat of checkmate. And now, by a miracle, black plays the only winning move, rook takes h7. And white, being a random move generator, plays queen takes f3. Not queen takes f3, just queen to f3. There was nothing there that was captured. Rather than taking the queen, black plays bishop to b5, but is still completely winning. White takes the pawn, but hangs their queen for the something like the 12th time this game. Black plays rook h6, saving their rook. White blunders the queen again, out of the frying pan and into the fire, because this pawn can still take it, and so can this rook, and the bishop is also hanging. King f8 is played. White loses the queen one more time before playing queen takes g4, and the queen is now out of the woods. And after queen a7, incredibly, this game is equal if queen takes g7 is played, because there are so many threats against the black king. But of course, queen f5 is played instead. This is now the position that I was thinking about where king e7 blunders a checkmate, because it's this, and either one of these two checks. And king g7 is the only winning move. This is winning for white, and this is a draw according to the fish. Knight f6 is played by black. White needs to play bishop a3, but instead takes a pawn. And black plays f3, which, apart from blundering the rook and apparently a mate after that, is a pretty good move because it threatens checkmate in one, and a random move generator is unlikely to block that. And indeed, white does not block it, instead undeveloping a bishop all the way to b1. This looks like something out of Chess 960. And it is... How many mate blunders has white made? I don't remember, but let's see how many white makes in a row here. Black doesn't play the mate, but instead plays the second best move, knight to d5. White blunders mate a second time in a row because of rook h1. Black hangs a rook, or rather would be hanging a rook, except that the mate is still there. White plays queen g3, doing nothing about the checkmate. Rook a g6, and now white is apparently winning. If this is played, equal if this is played, and completely lost if any other move is played. And there were a lot of legal moves, so white is probably going to be completely lost. Yep, that's 4 checkmate blunders in a row, although the mate is longer and harder to find now. Queen to c5, and now white does literally the worst thing that they can do. The worst move on the board, bishop to b1, because now not only can the queen take this bishop, but it is checkmate because the bishop cannot block. had the white bishop moved to b3 or a4, it could respond to queen c1 with bishop to d1. But now checkmate and one is blundered. It's the fourth consecutive mate blunder in a row by white. Instead, rook to g8 is played and bishop takes h6, check is winning. But queen to g7, check is winning, and this is no ordinary queen blunder because this queen is taken in 2 of the 3 possible legal moves as opposed to 1 or 2 out of 30 like you would normally have. But instead, black plays king to e8. White blunders checkmate again with queen to c1 and rook h1 check. Also, rook takes queen leads to unstoppable mate, according to Stockfish. But instead, knight e7. Now it is no longer a forced mate, but it's still a very good move, with black having checkmate threats left and right, and the queen being hanging. Queen takes g8 is apparently the top engine move. Instead, we get king f7. There's a 50-50 chance that black will take the queen, and black does take the queen. It is now checkmate in 7 moves, and no matter what white does, black is completely winning and will be for the foreseeable future. There's checkmate threats everywhere still. King to d2, and that is apparently checkmate in 2, because if king c3 there's knight d5, and if king to d1 there is rook h1 and a ladder checkmate. Instead of that, black plays one of the worst moves on the board, queen to b4. There are 4 legal moves for white, and one of them captures the queen, and white plays rook takes b4 and is almost back in the game. And now white blunders a rook with check, but that doesn't get captured, and white saves it on the very next move, and it's not too long until white is winning again because black hangs a rook in 1 move, but white responds with king to d3, hanging their own rook back, although now the rook on h6 is hanging. Taking the rook is still the right thing for black to do, because ultimately you win a bishop, and you have an extra rook and knight for some pawns. You will easily win the game as long as you don't let any of the pawns through. Now rook h3 is played, and white is winning again. Now black is winning again. I can't wait to see the eval graph of this game. You're going to see it too after the video. The first time I recorded this, I forgot to show that, but this time I will remember. King f7, and white is winning again. Now black is winning again because the rooks here are just getting blundered back and forth. Now black saves the rook, and now it's equal. If rook takes d7 is played, e6 might also hold on. Generally speaking, if the absolute value of the eval is less than 1, the position is a draw with best play. If it's more than 1, somebody will win with best play. Although the cutoff might actually be a little higher than 1. That's just what I believe based on watching computer chess games and seeing the eval bar as the engines play. And now the engine at first thought black was winning, but it's apparently a draw now. Now it's winning again, but black has to take the bishop, which, the bishop is giving a check. That bishop don't move like that. The bishop is giving a check along this diagonal. Instead, knight to e6 is played. White is winning if they play rook takes d7. Black is winning now if they take the bishop. White is winning now if they take the knight. And instead of taking the knight with the rook, black hangs the rook to that knight. And black hangs the rook again, and again, and again. But now black is down to 1 pawn. And now a fifth time. And now black hangs a rook with check. Literally the worst possible move on the board. White makes a bishop capture, moving 2 squares diagonally, but it's the wrong one. Black is now winning if they play rook takes bishop, but instead they play rook to h3, blundering a knight and a rook. Out of white's 6 legal moves, white plays bishop to g3, the wrong bishop move. Black now needs to play rook takes g3, sacrificing the rook to keep a winning position. Knight takes c6 is played instead. White's now completely winning. And that's one of the winning moves. Knight to c4. What a turnaround we've had in this game, as white is now completely winning and 2 of the 3 black pieces are hanging. Black has no pawns left, so is probably never going to win. And black was back in the game. If knight to b6 was played, that was a fork that would win at least the b5 pawn for black. Rook takes b5 is played. White goes backwards and it's a draw now. If rook takes g3 or knight takes e5, check is played. Instead we get rook to h4 and both rooks are hanging at the same time. Bishop to c8. It's a draw again. Rook to b3, that blunders a rook and white is winning again, because even though there is a fork, after the fork, white can play bishop takes h4 and be comfortably up a bishop and 2 pawns. Now bishop f5 and it's a draw again. Now it's winning again for white. Lost now because white found a way to blunder a rook. And then black blunders a rook back. And now white blunders a rook again. And now white is winning again if rook takes b6 is played. It is amazing how many rook blunders have been played in this game, and white by some miracle plays the only winning move. And now there's not a lot of exciting things that can happen. The pieces just shuffle. White blunders the rook, black blunders it back. And here there's actually a way for white to blunder checkmate in 1, which is king e1, and then there would be this. And there's also king c1, which is a draw, king c2, which is still winning, and the best move is king takes rook, which is played, and it's completely winning for white. There's mate on the eval bar, but white is playing randomly, of course, so a whole lot of mindless shuffling is going to happen, and some pieces are probably going to get blundered, and of course white has to win by checkmate, and checkmating by playing randomly is pretty difficult. White loses a bishop and could have lost a rook there. There were only 8 legal moves, not winning moves, for black. So there was a 1 in 8 chance the rook would be taken, but it wasn't. And eventually, white eliminates the black knight at the cost of a pawn. So white has a rook, bishop, and pawn, and a king to move randomly. Black only has a king, so white is guaranteed at least a draw. The rest of this game, which is over 100 moves, is pretty boring, so I'm going to speed through it. And it is around this point in the game that the 50 move rule starts to matter. For those of you who are new to chess, the 50 move rule says that when neither side has moved a pawn or captured a piece in 50 moves, the game ends in a draw. The last pawn move or capture was on move 89, white's 89th move, so if none of the pieces have been captured and this pawn is still here on move 139, the game will end in a draw. And it looked like that was going to happen until on move 100 and 31, White played f5 and reset the counter. White followed it up not too long after with f6. The pawn is now marching forward, and the 50 move rule counter has been reset again. The earliest 50 move rule draw possible is now on move 191. And that draw does not happen because White loses the rook. This is of course still completely winning if you as a human are playing it. You just have to be careful not to push the pawn prematurely and lose it. Like f7 in this game would throw because king e7 and you can't save your pawn. And of course, two random move bots just shuffle their pieces around, and eventually White blunders the bishop, although if you take it, White is still winning if f7 is played. That doesn't happen. White blunders the bishop again, and this time, out of Black's 6 legal moves, Black plays king takes e7. Now f7 is the only winning move. It doesn't happen. It's a draw now. King b7. Now every move wins for White because of how far away the king is. Now again, every move wins for White because this king will never be able to catch this pawn unless you give him like 3 moves without moving your pawn. Even that wins. Even moving your king backwards and away from the action is still winning. Again, every move is winning, and f7 gets played. And king a7, every move is winning. Now if the pawn, not every move is winning actually. All the king moves win. But now pawn promotion is a possibility. Now, there are 4 different kinds of promotion. You can promote to a queen, rook, knight, or bishop. All of those are different legal moves, so they count as 4 of the 12 legal moves in this position, meaning that there is a 1 in 3 chance that the pawn will promote. Now, if it does promote and it becomes a knight or a bishop, then the game automatically ends in a draw because neither side has sufficient checkmating material. If the pawn promotes to a rook, the position will be winning for White, but you would need to get extremely lucky to checkmate with a king and a rook using only random moves. But if the pawn promotes to a queen, you'll still need a lot of luck to checkmate, but it can happen. Indeed, a king and queen checkmate was exactly how the random move bot versus Zach game ended. Although Zach was trying to lose and a random move bot isn't trying to do anything. And indeed, on this very move, White plays pawn to f8 and promotes to a queen. Now, there is still some hope for White, and of course, the random shuffling continues. It's very boring. I won't make you go through all of this. Here the queen is blundered, it's not taken, but a few moves later, White blunders the queen again with queen to c8. Black has 3 legal moves and plays the only one that Zach would not do, which is king takes c8, and the game ends in a draw in 194 moves. And now all that's left is to check out the game review. What accuracy do you think the players had here? Must be in the single digits, right? Wow, it's not? Because White had a convincing advantage for so long. White had 19.7% accuracy, Black had 18.6% accuracy. That is a surprising number of best moves for random play. And White had 30 misses and 20 blunders. Black had 35 misses and 19 blunders. And That is quite the eval bar graph. I mean, I have seen some real games that look like that, although without the ending portion. That still shows you how chaotic a randomly generated chess game is. Goodbye and thank you for watching.